myself out.
I am afraid of...
I'm terrified and paralyzed by...
I am deathly afraid of...
Welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast with your host, me, Ryan Perrio. Hello and welcome to the Sum of All Fears podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Perrio. This week, my guest is comedian Stephen Gammill. Stephen Gammill is a local comedian here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area who's starting to branch out and open at clubs across the country. In this episode, we talk a lot about comedy because his fear is something called imposter syndrome. It's not something I'm very familiar with, but apparently it's just the fear that you're going to be discovered for all your insecurities is what it seems to come across to me like, which is super relatable to me because at some points I always feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and oftentimes I don't, but I just make the best of it. So let's get into this episode with Stephen Gammill. We're here with my friend, comedian, and bartender, Steve Gammill.
Wear a lot of hats.
Yes, a lot of hats that of entertainment, basically. In some form or other. If you can't do it on stage, well, what libations can I give you?
Exactly. Yeah, things that you can get paid for without any technical skill, but you got to kind of slap a smile on.
Okay. So how long
That's my milieu.
So how long have you been a bartender?
12 years.
Man, that it's when you're doing sad math when you realize how old you are. Like it's just the saddest math. Like you can just see the shock on your face of how that's
yeah. You do the math and you go, no, that can't be right, and then you double check and you're like, oh yeah, it has been well over a decade.
So, and that's how you've met your lovely wife was also as a bartender, weren't you at that point? Or
I was bartending when we met, but she is one of the actual few people that I've dated in my life that weren't service industry.
Okay. I thought she came into your bar or something is what you had told me.
No, I met her through some friends and they're bartenders. They used to work with me and then they worked at a different place. And I saw a picture of her on their social media and I was like, who is that? And it went from there.
So romantic. Who's that, babe?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, hook me up. No. Well, that's awesome. Your Katie is awesome. She's one of my favorite people because when she comes out to open mics, she's real supportive and real fun to talk to and socialite.
Yeah, I don't think I realized how rare that was when we first started dating and I first started doing comedy. I mean, there's people I know really well who I know are married and I've known them for years and never seen the wife.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like you have to have your own space on some of that stuff. Like I would think in a relationship that you can't spend all the time together. Otherwise, I'm not missing you. There's nothing to talk about. We've seen everything because we're there firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we have a decent balance because she does give a shit, but she's not. Yeah, she doesn't want it. She doesn't get FOMO if she's not at every single show and all that stuff. So it works out okay.
That's awesome. And so you're breaking into the working comic scene. You're opening act that has now is branched out to multiple comedy clubs in Dallas and outside of Dallas. Where you just got back from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Well, here in Dallas,
very glamorous.
Well, here in Dallas, everything was like locked down, frozen. So when you messaged me on Tuesday and said you were driving out to Tulsa, I was like, well, at the rate you may be driving, it may take that whole time to get there.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I think that'll be one of those that, God willing, if I keep doing comedy for as long as I want, I'll look back on that and go, you did what? To go where? For how much money? Yeah, it was not smart, but I've never canceled a gig yet, so I fucking did it anyways.
Yeah. Did you pick up John on the way, or did he just meet you in Tulsa?
Typical me and John traveling together fashion. I went to his place and woke him up, and then we got on the road.
Sounds like classic John Brown.
Yeah. I don't know if I should have outed him publicly just now, but yeah, because I wasn't for sure if he knew I was serious about leaving a day early. We were trying to beat the weather.
Yeah.
And in trying to do that, we drove through the worst of it. And then, so we got there a day early to try and beat the weather. And then the show that we got there a day early for was canceled because of the weather, because it was about the same up there as it was here.
So I'm glad you made it safely. That I'm sure that was harrowing and very slow moving. But in those kind of things, like, it's so much better if you have someone else to, like, at least lighten the mood, or at least talk to, or kind of go through it with, rather than just be by yourself white knuckling the steering wheel.
I actually hadn't even given that too much thought, but yeah, now that you mentioned it, if I had done it by myself, it would have been maddening.
Yeah, it would just been. It's super stressful. Like, I drove in this weather before, and it just gets so frustrating because it can get so slow, especially when you get to an overpass or a bridge, and then everything just have to slow down to absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I don't think I know we got there right before midnight, and I don't know how long it was supposed to take, but yeah, it was.
The worst is when someone's right next to you and you feel like, no, you don't need to be right here. Can you not be right next? Can you not be in collateral damage town? So if you lose it, don't take me out with you.
Yeah, it seems like, and this is maybe just one of those things, but it seems like when you're driving in that kind of weather, people either go, all right, I'm going to do 30 or I'm going to blow past everybody. You're like, I don't want to have to pass that many cars, but I'm not doing 30 on a drive that normally takes me 5 hours. You're doing 70, you know?
Yeah.
But we made it. We survived. And the shows that didn't get canceled were really good. So I'll take it.
That's good to hear. I have yet to do a Looney Bin show yet, so that's on one of my, hopefully, things to do in the next year or two. So you're also a father.
Yep, I am in the room of a yeah. That's one of the hats that doesn't fit as well as some of the other ones, maybe.
I don't know. I feel like your kid probably, does stuff with you from time to time, and you have your one thing that you'll, I guess, share, like playtime or whatever, TV show or.
Yeah, we've had a lot of different things over the years, but our thing now is cooking, and she's finally got like the dexterity and the desire to, want to cook more than like a pancake. And that's my big thing anyways. And she thinks I'm like some fancy chef. So that's our thing currently.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think you're some fancy chef with the food posts that you post online.
It's that portrait mode view. It makes everything look artisan.
Yeah, that pasta dish took forever. Just the cutting, because I was like, I have to cut the olives and stuff, because I was like, I don't want one whole olive in there. I mean, it's very rustic if I do it that way, but I'll slice the olives, everything kind of the same width, like the asparagus and everything. It was really good. Mm-hmm. Like, I will say,
yeah, it looked good.
The grinding of the ham and then frying it in the pan to where it's like gives it like a bacon bit kind of feel, so it's like an every bite.
Yeah,
You don't just you don't hunt for meat in your pasta. It's like, oh, it's in every bite.
Now, when I saw it though, you were like, oh, I've been watching this show. I know you cook sometimes, but I don't think you're obsessed like I am. But yeah. Do you own a grinder?
I have a KitchenAid mixer, and it has the grinder attachment. My uncle was a chef.
Oh, grinder attachment on okay.
Yeah, so it's a KitchenAid.
Okay, because that's one of the few kitchen gadgets that I don't own is like a grinder to make your own burger patties and everything else. So I was like, that's weird that he has a next level.
Well, my grandmother, when I was a kid, would grind ham, and we'd make ham omelets. We would just do ham and egg, scrambled eggs and ham, and then you would put it in there, make a little egg ham patty in the skillet, and just cook it. And it's one of my favorite breakfasts, so I was making that, and I'm like, let me just grab a pouch of salami, and I'll grind that with the ham, and then I'll put it in this pasta because I watch Top Chef is the show I binge because I love Top Chef. That's something me and my uncle would watch all the time when I was having to move back home. I got into that with him because he was watching it. We started watching season 2. He had already watched season 1. And so he was a chef, so he'd seen all this stuff and he could see all the mistakes and what they were trying to do.
Right.
And how shit goes sideways. And so it was fascinating to watch this drama unfold. But some of the recipes, and in this last season, one of the guys made a pasta and he ground up the meat. And so it was like, he made it look like it had like ground up on top of pasta. And I was like, why didn't I think of that? To just grind meat into the pasta. And he had put olives in it too. And I'm like, olives in pasta. Why didn't you think of that?
Right.
And so that's when I went, let me go get some, I got a ham steak and ground that up. Do you have a KitchenAid mixer?
I do, but I don't have any of the attachments for it. But I use it to make dough and stuff.
They do have a sausage attachment. I'm getting my mom that for Christmas, or her birthday rather, this coming week or so. There's a Amazon thing for a grinder, sausage stuffer, and citrus juicer for $129 for all 3. And so that's her birthday present.
Yeah, I get it. Every time I find out there's another like the sausage making thing, I'm like, oh, that'd be cool. I'm just like, that's just another rabbit hole I'm gonna go down that I'll be obsessed with for months.
I definitely want to try to grind my own burger meat at some point. Like I want to try to make I want to grind like short rib, ribeye, and stuff like that, and make my own ground beef, which would be fascinating to me and fun, just to try to make a ground beef patty.
Oh, for sure, that'd be the main thing I would use it for.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, my uncle was in restaurants, so we dealed in restaurant equipment for a long time, and we got this KitchenAid Classic mixer way back, and we got it from my grandmother, and then she had it until I guess I moved here, and when I moved into this apartment, she didn't have room for it where she was living, so she gave it to me, and so I have a classic KitchenAid mixer.
Well, those things last forever and a day too. You need one lifetime, one per generation.
It doesn't turn off, so I have to keep it unplugged. But it still works, and it's a lifesaver. Like when I make cookies or pancakes or any kind of batter, I just throw all the stuff in that mixer and plug it in, and I turn around and it's done. It's definitely paid for itself. And so I love to use it, and I have the grinder, and I have like the I guess the grater attachment where I can make coleslaw, so I can shred cabbage and stuff like that.
Nice.
Those are my 2 attachments right now. I thought about getting the ice cream maker, but that one's kind of extreme. You have to put the bowl in the freezer like the whole night before, and then it makes like a gallon of ice cream or something like that.
Yeah, we have a separate ice cream maker. I've not yet made an ice cream that really came out even as good as like Kroger brand ice cream, and it's a whole to do. So I'm like, man, it's one of those things. I don't know that it's any cheaper to make it yourself. It doesn't come out quite as good. It makes a fucking mess.
Do you use rock salt? Do you use the rock salt and everything?
Yeah.
That's something my dad's side of the family did for summertime. Like on 4th of July, we would get together and they would make like homemade banana, vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, that would be the really good thing about it, is if you just had some crazy idea or something, out there.
Well, I would go
flavor wise.
I always go nuts with that stuff. Like I'm very much, me and my dad very much are creativity cookers. Like, oh, what if we put this? Like my dad makes something called a salmon patty when I was a kid, and I hated him as a kid because that was everything he cooked, was just this one salmon potato croquette patty with all this stuff in it. But I'm going to try to we'll go visit him and try to get him to make them smaller, and I'm going to toast a brioche bun and make a coleslaw. And so I'm going to try to make it like a salmon patty sandwich.
Sounds pretty good. It's also worth noting I do intermittent fasting, so all this talk about food I haven't eaten yet today. So
Same. That's why I was like, just give me 10 minutes. I'm starving so bad. Like I'm gonna make that pasta again, but I'm gonna use tuna this time because I don't have any more ham left. That's the goal. Is I'm gonna use tuna, angel hair pasta, lemon caper butter sauce, and maybe some sliced asparagus in there.
Sounds all right, man.
Yeah. Cheap, hearty, and we'll survive. So you do cooking as one of your passion projects. What other passion projects do you have that besides stand-up bartending, cooking?
Kind of tough to say because the cooking thing is just taken over a little bit. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have time for a whole lot else.
Yeah. And another thing is your dad is an illustrator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is a little bit famous in his own right in his niche thing that he does.
So he was a comic book illustrator, correct?
Yeah, he was. He did all the major comics like in the 90s, all the Marvel and DC stuff. And he currently is the publisher of his own real small company, and he does horror comics.
Well, that's slightly terrifying, I'm sure. Like, do you let him like watch your kids? Like, just hey, don't take them into your horror comic den.
Well, but it's the cheesy horror, you know what I mean? It's the old school, like Universal Creature from the Black Lagoon and all that. Nothing that would be scary. Like, well, I mean, it still scares my kids, but
yeah, it scares you that he's still doing it.
yeah, man. Talk about people with passion projects, man. He's just kind of always done wherever his heart kind of takes him. It's pretty, inspiring, I guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to inspire you on some level because you can see that there's an end game to doing what your passion is, rather than to be in a day job or do something maybe you're not too keen on just to survive.
Yeah. Well, I should mention we were not rich growing up, so I learned the pitfalls of it, but. My mom always was, she made less than him at times, but she was always the rock with the steady thing coming in. And then he, being an artist, sometimes you're doing great and sometimes you're not.
So did you ever try to draw, or is that not in your wheelhouse?
I draw probably better than you, but not, not good enough to be, really do anything with it. My brother, who's a musician, which also kind of runs in our family, he got the gene for my dad, and he was pretty good, but he didn't really pursue it.
He rather shred.
But growing up in that house, you're gonna pick up a thing or two. But as we talked about this off air about rebelling, and people find out my dad was a comic book artist, and in the 90s, they're like, oh, so about X-Men episode 146 where blah. I'm like, nah, I was kind of like, if this is what I'm supposed to like, I'm gonna take a left.
I'm all reading Shakespeare over here. Come at me with some real written literature. I don't need this any I don't need 20 pages of resolution. I need 175 pages of absolute I'm not sure what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, something where I need a translator.
And so, thank you for doing this podcast. My podcast is about fears. Yours is really interesting. It's a imposter syndrome. And so when you said that, I wasn't kind of clear on what that is. Can you kind of describe it?
Well, I've never, I didn't learn about it in psychology class or anything, but my understanding of it is, and I think it's, if you can call what I do and what we do show business, I think it's kind of rampant in people that do this kind of stuff for a living. Is you're just, you're trucking along in your career, and the whole time you're worried that you're going to be discovered that you're a phony and that you don't really know what you're doing, and everyone else belongs, but you don't, which obviously I think I have, and I'm sure a lot of comics have it, but I think it bleeds over for me into kind of a lot of aspects of my life, if that makes sense.
Okay. Well, Fun fact, none of the comics know what they're doing. It really is like if I'll send you a link to Chris Rock's where he's on like the one of those Hollywood, like real Hollywood, where the people are just he's in a room where they're videotaping, but it's like almost like a behind the scenes, kind of talking about how he was discovered. And he literally was moving tables at a comedy club, and they didn't, Eddie Murphy came in, didn't have he would like to have a person of color on the show bill that night. No other comic, all white comics. So Chris Rock got to go on, and he heard Eddie Murphy laugh, and then the next day he's a valet on Beverly Hills Cop 2.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, that's a pretty good jump.
Yeah, but it was just I remember him on that when I watched Beverly Hills Cop 2 after I saw Chris Rock. He's a valet when they pull that cement truck into the party.
Yeah, but you still got to be in, I guess, New York or wherever he was when he was moving that table.
Yeah, it was in a Los Angeles comedy club. I can't remember which one it was, if it was the Cellar or something else, but he said he was just moving tables because he, as comics, whatever you could do to get more stage time, we'll do it.
Yeah.
And so he was doing that kind of legwork, and he just also happened to have the skill, the comedy skills that when you get put in an opportunity, you can then also maximize it. And so,
yeah.
And that's what I've told people is like, you just don't know. I mean, you can do all this stuff all you want, but you just don't know, when somebody that matters is going to be listening and be like, hey, I really like what you do. Would you like to do this? And so it's always just you've always got to be on, but at the same time, not be expecting that opportunity to happen to you at any point. It just, just naturally just enjoy what you're doing. And if you're doing something really great and original, they'll find you. They're always, they're always going to find you somehow, some way.
Yeah, like if Chris Rock, if that didn't happen to him, he still would have made it to where he's at one way or another. If you miss one opportunity, it's really not the end of the world.
What I tell people, it's an opportunity, not the opportunity.
Right.
And so, you just gotta not think of it as the opportunity so that you don't put too much pressure on yourself. And so when you say it falls into other aspects, where do you think it falls into? Like, is it like a fatherhood? Like you feel like your daughter's gonna think that you don't know something?
Oh yeah, that's a big one. When, every year I'm like, oh, this is the year that she's going to get old enough to realize that I'm an idiot or that, but I think getting a little bit older, I think you just end up talking about it with comedy. It's like, yeah, obviously all these people are insecure, but you get a little bit older and you realize I don't think I'm, a natural at being a dad. I'm just doing what I think a dad should do or would do. And then you go, I bet that's what all of our fucking parents were doing. You know what I mean? Nobody's just like knows what to do or, that's why we're all so fucked up.
Yeah.
Our parents were just doing their best.
Yeah. Everybody does what I feel like they think their best is. And then it just evolves or devolves from there, depending on the situation you're in. So what about does it fall in like bartending? Do you feel like at some point you're just going to be replaced or your shift's going to be covered and then that's going to be the last time you work?
Kind of. And I actually, we talked about this subject matter ahead of time. So I started thinking about it and I had an epiphany in comedy because I got the MC spot at Hyenas and I was like, I know my material. I like my jokes. Okay, whatever. But it was the being a host. And, I think people think I'm corny and gregarious. So the hosting part, maybe comes easy to me. But like, that was what I was the most worried about. You know what I mean? You got to kind of just be this cheery, excited, whatever. And then I realized, a million years ago, when I started bartending, I was like, they're going to find out that I'm not like this nice person that gives a shit about last night's game or whatever I think a bartender is supposed to be. And I was like, I faked that for so many years. I was like, I can fake being an MC and being excited about the feature act.
I feel like I don't fake it. I'm just like, this is my job. Like, and I always approached it like, you guys don't know Eric Myers or whoever the comic is. Like, you don't know this guy? You guys are at a comic club, you don't know who this guy is?
Yeah,
and so,
whoever it is.
And so I have a high energy disbelief, like you really don't know. Guys, this guy has been on this, and now he has a podcast. Guys, make some noise for Ben Creed, or whoever it was.
Yeah.
And so I've always just come from that, and it boosted my confidence tenfold when I was an MC. Because I can show you old comedy videos of myself before I was an MC where I'm not making eye contact with anyone. Like, I'm looking at the floor the whole time.
You're not even looking out into the darkness like I do.
Yeah, I'm just, and it was just so terrifying. And I had to slowly, but once I got the MC spot, I had been going up last so long. Like, I was so bad, people wouldn't put me when there was an audience. They would put me at the end of the open mic, and I was happy to do it because then I could hit 5 to 6 open mics a night at my peak, because I was living at home and I didn't want to go home. I was like, wherever I can do comedy to not realize that I'm in my 30s living with my mom, I'm there. And so I did that, and I would just go last, and slowly my confidence built until I was, in 2008, I was doing well, but nobody knew it because I would still go last. So about late 2009 is when I first got my first hosting spot, and it was like a 180 from where I was as an open micer, and I was just like, I just have a little bit of energy. And so it would radiate, and I got to where I was loud, I was commanding, and when I asked people to fill out comment cards, people were like, Jesus, like everybody in the room literally looked down and started picking up their pencils. Like it looked like, I don't know if you remember America's Funniest Home Videos, like the show. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah.
When they had to vote, and then the audience would all like pick up, like that's what it looked like. It was like the America's Home Videos voting. And so people were, even features like, man, I feel weird going up because everybody's still filling out comment cards by the time I go on stage. But I started doing that, and then I moved to feature in like 2015. Like, I just patiently waited. Some people were already moving to feature, like Jessup, and everybody else was progressed. And then late 2015, I got my first feature spot, which was a trip, because I didn't realize how much feature work was. And so I was just doing all my MC spots at MC pace. It's just bang, 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 bang.
Yeah.
And I was so mentally exhausted. I sat in my car for like 15 minutes and was like, because people will tell you, like, feature spot's the best spot. It's the best spot in the whole fucking show, because you don't have to do announcement. You don't have to worry about anything. You can just do your time, kill it, and then leave. And it's all up to the headliner to follow you. And I got in my car and I was like, how is this the best spot? I don't think I'm ready to. I was literally questioning the fact that I could be a feature. And I just kept racking at my brain. I'm like, why are we doing everything like I'm an MC? Just because I have 30 minutes doesn't mean I should do it like I only have 15 minutes to do this 30 minutes. And so I started stretching the second night I started stretching these bits out and just really kind of living in them. And it went really well. And then from then on, I just kept doing it. And then I started making a second one and a third. Now I did a headlining spot, and I'm like, oh, so I just need to keep working at it, because I had the headlining time down. It's just now I have to make it me. And it's like, okay, I was so much worried about making sure I fill my time, I don't lose track, don't forget. don't get to like 30 minutes and like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to leave you guys with this, didn't
then you realize that's the bare minimum is filling that time.
Yeah.
You're going to have to make just as many adjustments as you did from MC to feature.
Yeah. And it's also you have to be more aware in the room. And as an MC and a feature, I try not to acknowledge anything that happens in the room. I was like, let me leave that for the next guy. If he wants to hit it or acknowledge it, let him do it. And so now as a headliner, I'm like, well, I've got to, if someone says something weird, I've got to say something.
Yeah.
I can't I can't ignore it. And so I kind of did that my first headlining spot, and I'll work on doing that a little bit more as we get back into open mics now that everything's not shut down. That was a weird week of just sitting in my apartment again. I'm like, oh, this is the quarantine all over again. This is
reminiscent. Yeah. Yeah, it was rough.
How do you manage being a bartender that gives you, I guess, weird hours? I don't know if that helps with your kids' school and everything else, because Monday and Tuesdays, since they're kind of slow.
No, yeah, it's the worst. It's the worst. And like, I don't know if you could consistently just be like, like when I was younger and I was single and everything else, I'd be like, yeah, I don't feel bad for like sleeping all day or whatever, because when you get off at 5 p.m., you don't get to sleep by 6. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so I would keep weird hours. I would keep late hours and that. But now it's, I got the new kid. So I'm like, there's been a couple times where I've worked like a Friday night and I get home and I like drop my shit, whatever I've got, and I'm sit down and I'm starting to eat a little bit of food. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna wind down and go to sleep. And then the baby wakes up. I'm like, nope, just gonna keep it going.
I was gonna say there should be. I think there was something like Etsy or something, like there's a glove and you can fill it with like buckwheat husk and you can like microwave it so it's like warm, and you can put it on the baby's back so it feels like there's a hand there so it goes to sleep, and so it doesn't feel like you're not there, so you don't have to be
whatever it costs. I'll take it.
It's just a little thing to kind of let them know, oh, there's somebody there. Okay, I don't need to cry.
Yeah. If only it were that easy. She, I don't know. I got lucky with both my kids. They're both super easy and they treat me all right, which God bless them, I guess. But as far as babies go, from what I understand, she's about as easy as it gets. So I'll take it. Yeah. And the wife is great with everything technology, and she helps me out whenever I ask her. But I don't want to be like, she works a 9 to 5. She gets home, she's tired. I'm like, hey, will you help me? I'm an idiot. I can't work my phone. So
3 a.m. Hey, can you help me post this video to TikTok?
Exactly.
The algorithm says that this is probably the best time to upload a video, and I'm having a little bit of trouble. I don't know what an algorithm is, but they said if you just get up at 3 a.m. Central Standard Time, right, that this is when I will get discovered by Netflix.
As if that was the problem. I think there's so many people, and I'm glad I'm on the opposite side of it. I'm like, yeah, hey, you know what? I suck at promoting myself. I suck at social media. I suck at even remembering to take my phone out and let people know I'm doing anything. But I try hard at the part where I'm on stage telling jokes.
Yeah.
I feel like that's still important, right?
How do you, I guess, handle the imposter syndrome? Like when that feeling hits, that kind of, I guess, that nervosa hits, that, oh my God, this is, one of these days my daughter's going to realize that I told her this stuff or it's not accurate, and then she's going to just tell me.
I mean, I guess really all you can do is just remember the other times you felt that way. Well, the parenting one is, that's to be determined, I guess, still. But like, with comedy and stuff, I'm like, well, at every stage you felt this way, you know what I mean? Like even when I first started out, I'm like, okay, so everyone hates me. They all think I'm a fucking fat piece of shit. And then it just turned out like, no one gives a shit that a new idiot has started comedy. And
it's just one of those things where slowly over time, people, you kind of latch on to people that you become a shared interest. And that's why I always advocate to have that comedy buddy that's in comedy that you can, if when you're struggling with something, that they're on that similar level that you are, so that they are like, yeah, man, I know exactly what you, because it's like, I can't go, to an opener, but man, I don't understand why I only get 6 weekends out of the year booked at this club.
Yeah. The level above you and the level below you.
Because I've had comics do that. Like, they get on Facebook, like, I don't think I'm funny. I'm like, you're getting work. You can't get on Facebook right now anymore and just have a pity party and have people come in your comment section saying, you're funny. I was like, you're a working comic now. People, I was like, you're of the level of comics, you've risen above the open mic level. So now we know you're funny. We're booking you because you're funny. So that part, you can't just sit there and say that. You can say, man, I feel like something's not working or anything like that. And so you have to just kind of be, you have to do it for the fun of it. And you have to realize that there's going to be hurdles, and it's probably not what you think it is, because you're coming from a place of emotion. And so you're thinking like, oh, I must have done something to really upset them. Like that's one of the ones I get. Oh, I'm probably done something. It's usually not that at all. It's a lot more business like and logic based than people realize.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, like, when you're the most frustrated like that, it's when you feel like you should be on to the next level, whatever the next promotion for you is. And then you don't get it and you're frustrated. And then finally you do get it and you realize that you shouldn't have got it when you first thought you should have. You know what I mean?
Because I've had a couple comics that when, they were moved up to another level where, like, thank you. I didn't realize, I wasn't ready until now that I realize, because that's one thing is I don't want to put people in a position where they make a bad impression. Oh, yeah. And so I always try to make it to where it's almost like, why hasn't this guy been doing this versus why is this guy doing this? That's what I tell people is I want Randy to ask me, he's like, why have you not had this guy booking me instead of why is this guy? And so it's always, it's like, I never want to put you in a position where you could do it, but it's more 50-50. I want it to be 100% that this is not an issue. I don't want 7 out of 8 sets to be great. I want all 8 great. Mm-hmm. Because I guarantee you, if you're only doing 7 out of 8 and one's a clunker, that's going to be the one that the management watches.
Yeah, the owner's in the room or whatever it is.
And I'm like, first impressions are hard to erase. And so that's why I would tell people, why are you rushing? You don't want to rush a first impression, in my opinion, that maybe if you give it a little bit more time, may come out better than what it is now. Like, I understand the hunger and the want to get to that next level, but why rush it when you could just take a little time, and when that next level opportunity comes, you blow the doors off of everybody else they're even in consideration.
Yeah, I think a lot of, definitely myself included, but like a lot of comics, especially when you start out, you hear these stories, and these are the exception, not the rule, but you hear like Joe Rogan talking about, like, he was headlining way too early and they just threw him to the wolves and whatever. And like, he survived it. It's like, yeah, but for every person that has that, I jumped way ahead, way too early, and I survived it, and now I'm famous story, there's probably 100 that got pushed into something they couldn't handle, and like you said, made that shitty impression, or just got shell shocked from it. Or
like have you read the book I'm Dying Up Here?
No, did I hear about that just recently?
It was on a show on Showtime. They kind of changed the names. I'll loan you the book. It's about the stand-up in the mid to late 70s during the stand-up boom when Jay Leno and David Letterman were killing it in L.A. And there's another comic named Steve Lebitkin who threw himself off a building. But it's that, he's that, the rule to, there's all these great comics, and then there's the one that
Letterman's the exception for sure.
Well, you just realize, some people are just so impatient, and they see their peers excelling and they're not, and they just have they just need some sort of reassurance. And it's a really good book, but it's really it really puts a point on, how comics are, and that how desperate they are to succeed.
Desperate, insecure.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I really, I was struggling with early on in my comedy. And then, like I said, when I was one of the worst comics, I just kind of accepted. I was like, maybe I'm not this good as what I think I am. How can I get better? And so I had to change my mindset, eliminate being, friends with certain comics that were super competitive and wanted to compete and show who's got more stage time or shows. And, I'm like, I was like, it's not helping me. I wasted my first year.
You're already in an impossible situation, because to do it in the first place and think you're going to do it as a career, you have to be delusional to a degree to think that you deserve everyone's attention and that you can entertain X amount of people for X amount of time. So you have to be delusional. And then immediately once you start doing it, you have to start being as objective as you can, or you're going to be this fucking prick that thinks he's better than he is or whatever. And then you are that prick sometimes, and then you go 180 the other way, and you have no self-confidence. And I think if you had a podcast called Sum of All Regrets, I would say the thing that I dwell on is that I started at such a later age than most people when they start out as open micers. And I have to constantly remind myself, like, dude, a lot of my comedy buddies that we started around the same time, they're all, they were 23 when they started. They're 25, 26 now. And I'm like, do you remember what you were like at 24?
Yeah.
You think you would have just started and just been as, dedicated and concentrated as you are in your 30s? Yeah. There's no fucking way.
Well, and it's just one of those things too, where it's like where you just learn how to get better at it, and at a certain, like, there's a more of accepting. Like, I feel sometimes as a younger person, you don't accept your identity and you try to change it, and you try to use comedy to be who you wish you were versus who you really are. And it just becomes like high school. It's like watching Saved by the Bell and watching Screech wear sunglasses and try to be cool. It's like,
That's perfect.
but that's the visual I get. And God rest Dustin Diamond, aka Screech. I worked with him a few times, but that's the visual I get when I try to do something that I know doesn't fit. Like if I do a lot of, I just got laid, or it's like to get, I was like, I don't get laid a lot, and so I was like, it doesn't fit, and it's that kind of situation. Or another way is the Steve Buscemi on 30 Rock when he comes in with the skateboard, like, how do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah,
that's what I feel like sometimes people do, instead of just owning the fact that they're old, or owning the fact that they're only in their 20s, but they don't have an authority just to live their life and just find the weird things that they do.
Yeah, I feel like I would be, if I tried to act like I was actually cool, I would be doing just what you're talking about. But if I also tried to lean in to be, to relate to people my age, or people that are parents, or people that are married, I think I'd be even more false that way, because I still identify more with these other degenerates that are in the comedy scene.
That would be so terrifying to do stand-up as, too. Like, to like, could you imagine, like, being Larry the Cable Guy at some point, like, just feeling like at any point in this moment, people are going to realize you're not real. Like, that this guy actually has a degree from, he went to Nebraska, has got a doctorate and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I would be terrified. Like, that could be your career, because what you do, not Larry the Cable Guy, can't come close to what you do as Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, you gotta just think that it's all gonna come crashing down around you at some point.
Like, that's the biggest.
Thank God his fans are so stupid.
But that's the imposter syndrome thing you're talking about, though. It's like, man, that would be a nightmare for you if you're like that fears in you. Could you imagine like trying to operate?
Oh yeah, dude. If somebody offered me money to do like a church tour or something, and I took it, and I was like, well, I look like the rest of these people. I'm a dad. I'll just pretend to be wholesome. I think it would not fly.
But it's so hard. It's got to be stressful because then you got to try to write, and that's not how you write. Like the OCD in me is like thinking all the wholesale changes to how I do stuff, and just the ripple effect of all that just stresses me out. Just now I've got to write in this vein. I can't do, what I can't, like, if it was for me like to be, I guess, dirty, is like, oh, now I can't be innocent and stuff like that. Now I have to dress like Spider-Man 3 with the emo
leather jacket,
the emo swipe of hair, and just try to change your whole attitude. It's like, that doesn't fit who I am. I've never been confident to the point that people, that I intimidate people.
Yeah, mine goes the other way. I can't write clean. I just write what I write and see how much of it I can turn into clean enough to get by.
And since you work at our local Backdoor Comedy Club from time to time, I mean, that does help gauge. That's where I started, and so I always tell people it's always easier to start clean and then go to dirty than it is to start dirty and try to be clean.
Yeah,
because then it's like, well, I don't, it's like a whole mindset change. It's like, oh, I don't know any other words for fuck, like, yeah. How am I supposed to express that I'm so frustrated right now? Golly gee, guys, this is so frustrating. Golly gee, women, guys, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the bitch of it is when you're working for a headliner that's like, hey, do that same joke, but do it without this word and this word. And you're like, it doesn't work. That's how I talk, and blah, blah, blah. And then you change the words and you're like, fuck, it works just as good. Yeah.
I've learned to change words because I can, as you've seen when we do corporate or a bar, that, what was the Studio 80 show where opposite the anti-corporate show, Randy's like, just go ahead and be dirty. Just go. I'm like, okay. It's like, I have no filter. I've learned to just kind of listen, feel the room and kind of shift my gear, just kind of pre-plan, like, okay, that's going to work. This is this. And it's one of those things you'll learn too, like, as you keep doing this, you can start leaning, I guess, almost organizing your jokes however you want, like a Rolodex, kind of like, okay, we'll take that card out. This card will be there, and I'll just flip through and it'll go great.
The closest thing I've ever come to and I mean, I understand the concept of it fully. I'm not in a position where I really have to do that right now, kind of a deal. I just have my set. But one time I kind of noticed like that people were liking the higher energy stuff and not liking the kind of slower stuff with a little bit more build to it. And so I just did the same set I was going to do, but I just kind of ramped it up and just put a little bit more behind it. And then I got off stage. I was like, did I just fucking change gears? Did I notice something about the crowd and adapt a little bit? But other than just pretending to be more confident than I am, I hardly ever vary at all.
That's my big struggle. Is like, that's why I always learned. I always try to mess with stuff and put it in different orders and everything else, and I'll put myself in that kind of that thought process of, okay, we know both of these jokes work in different areas. What if we put them here back to back? Like, they're not, if they're gonna bum, like, I have a way out, but let me just put this and this together. Let me sew these two things together and see if I can make it work, if I can transition from one to the other. And I always try to put myself, I would say on stage, I'm very high risk at some points. Like I will, as far as, I guess, joke-wise, I vary my routine and I won't do it the same way twice. Just because I don't want to be that person that's doing the same set the same way every week, to the point where I feel like at that point, to me, I would just be like trying to form like a noose with the mic cord.
Yeah.
I was like, I get some of it where you have to have some stock material, but I was like, you can vary it some. Like, I don't use the same descriptors all the time. Like, I have the same general purpose, but I don't say it the same way every single time. I just do the main idea, and then I'll freeform it from there as I'm saying it, because it's nothing more frustrating than to have it all written down a certain way, and then as you start talking, like all of a sudden different words start going. Like, oh, that's not.
Yeah.
You're off script. And so I was like, well, I just learned early on, I was like, I can't write word for word because I keep going back, changing this word, changing that word. And I was like, this is frustrating. Let me just write the main idea, and then I will, with my great memory, I'll just remember what it is, and then I will kind of work around it, and it'll work or it won't. And so that's how I've always written. So I just write like a main idea, and that's all I have.
Yeah, I know that everything you're saying is correct and the smart way to do it, especially to get better, but it's also everything that is in my nightmares.
Fly without a net. Just one time, just do it, Dick Grayson. Just be Robin one time. What's the worst that could happen?
I mean, he was orphaned. I don't want to get orphaned from hyenas or from the loony bin.
I think it's one of those things where it's just one of those things that you do for fun while you're up there to kind of to break up the monotony of the set. Like, okay, I've got a new joke I want to try. Where I'm going to try it. How did that do? You know, there's always little things. People always, bug out when they're open mic and like, there's no audience. It's like, audience laugh is just one of the things to work on, but it's not the only thing you can work on.
Yeah.
Like, maybe work on when you have no one there in the room at all. Okay. Can I say these words without going blah, 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 just getting completely lost?
Yeah. Can I not go at all?
Like, there's so much to work on. It doesn't just have to be.
Yeah.
The crowd is just a bonus.
Yeah. And, when there's no one there, there's a little bit more freedom to just take the pressure off. And I feel like that about some, even like paid work and club work and all that stuff. Sometimes you just go, I'm watching these people sit down. They're fucking hammered. You know what I mean? Half the people are in cowboy hats or whatever it is. Like, you just go, okay, well, judging by my past experience, they're not going to like me and it's not going to go how I want. So then I already know that you can't really hurt me. I'll have a good time. I
think you're genuine. I don't think you have you're an imposter in any way, shape, or form. And
I got one fooled.
Yeah. And so you just, it's a game of golf. It's like you can play the same chorus on different days and have completely different scores at the end of the day. The one day you could be, acing everything, and the next day it's just like every shot is a like nervous twitching. Just, oh my God, what am I doing? Oh my God, where is that going? Oh my God, that's not where I wanted to go.
Yeah, sometimes I just want to yell at an audience and go, I said these exact same fucking words last night, and I'll play the audio of everyone laughing, you cunts.
Yeah, but that's the whole group think of a crowd, that it can be a small group of people that's either disruptive or just not responsive at all. And and just in specific spots in the room where they sit, those people can control the room. Like, if a group of people that don't laugh sit like near the front, everybody behind them won't laugh because they're not laughing. And it's like, man, it's such a daunting and, scientific, because that's one thing I've argued with is sometimes, in some ways, this is a science and not an art, because I'm still trying the same things. I'm just trying to get different results from the same formula.
Yeah, it's at the very least, it's a pseudoscience of some kind.
But Steve, I thank you for doing this. Where can people find you on social media?
I am on Instagram at Steve Gammill, on Twitter at Steven Gammill with the PH, and stevegammill.com is a site that exists, and I should put my dates on there.
I do the same thing.
Now that it's rough. But theoretically, you could always find me on there and see where I'm at.
Well, thank you again, Steve.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And I'll let you get to some food here before you get to starvation. You can go make a culinary delight.
Before I waste away. All right, I'll send you a picture of it.
Talk to you later.
Good talking to you.
So that was Steven. It's a real interesting conversation. We kind of glossed over imposter syndrome and just all the different ways you can feel like you don't know what you're doing. And I feel like that's just everybody in life. That you kind of know, you know where you're driving, you know what your job entails. But any day could hold any new obstacle. And so you always have to work to try to overcome those obstacles. And I do my best to try and overcome those obstacles on a daily basis and just enjoy life as it comes. I'm 44 years old. I've kind of made peace with a lot of the things that have caused me issues growing up. And as a young adult, being a comic, I think you just kind of, you get tired of imposter syndrome is how you beat it. Because I feel like it's kind of what I went through starting comedy, just feeling like part of me being confident, thinking I'm good at this, but then to realize you're really not, and you don't know what you're doing, but yet you still have to try to do it. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Check out Stephen Gammill's comedy on his Instagram, Facebook. I really enjoyed this episode. As for me, just been kind of doing the grind, open mics. I'll be working this Saturday in Fort Worth with Todd Larson, who's a great comic. If you want to check that out, come out to Hyena's Comedy Nightclub. I'll have links to that show in the show notes. I've also got some 3 for 25s coming up in April. On April 8th, I'll be in Hyena's Dallas. Come out to that. And also Thursday the 15th at Hyenas in Fort Worth, I'll be on one of those shows as well. Addison Improv will be coming in May. And hopefully some more shows will be coming up here in the near future. I thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe if you like what you hear. Leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. I thank you for listening to The Sum of All Fears. Have a good week. And now some thank yous for the folks that make this show possible. Thanks to Barry Whitewater for my art and graphics. You can follow him on Instagram at bwhiteh2o. Get it? H2O like water. You can also follow him on Facebook, Music. A huge thank you to Gunnar Olsen for the wonderful music provided for this podcast. You can follow him on Instagram at gunbuns, that's GUNBUNS, as well as his website, gunnarolsen.net. Check out some of the samples that he has recorded. They're amazing. He's an amazing percussionist. If you want to follow the show, we've got a Facebook group, Sum of All Fears. Instagram, Twitter, you can find us at Some Fear Fans. If you have some feedback for the show, email me at somefearfans, SOMEFEARFANS @gmail.com. I'll be happy to take those into consideration. Also, if you'd like to be a guest, email me at somefearfans @gmail.com. We can try to iron out some details and get that settled in. Give us some feedback. If on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts, leave a review. It makes the show bigger, and it's not going anywhere. I'm going to record as many shows as I possibly can. If you want to follow me on social media, I am at Ryan Perio. It's RyanPerio on all social media platforms. You can follow me there, and you can check me out at ryanperio.com, my website. I'll try to list upcoming shows there as well. It's been kind of spotty because as soon as I set it up, that's when the pandemic happened. And everything's kind of just in a holding pattern. Thanks again for listening to the Sum of All Fears podcast. Next week, we'll have another guest with another fear. Thanks for listening.